Raider Nation, what's going on? You're watching the Raiders Report. It's Mitchell Renz here from Chat Sports. And coming up on today's show, what's the latest around Chandler Jones? I'm going to tell you, is he going to be playing a new position this upcoming season? Tyree Wilson, what are the rookies' expectations for this defense? And then the number one reason why the Las Vegas Raiders signed Brian Hoyer. That's all coming up right now here on the show. But first, let's talk about the latest around number 55, Chandler Jones. The Raiders, they signed him to a big-time deal last offseason. 3 years, we were expecting a little bit more for $54 million. But guess what? Jones is down to around 250 pounds. There's reports out there that he's dropped about 15, and people who I've talked to said that he played somewhere between 260, 265 pounds. So nonetheless, though, you got a player who's down around 10 to 15 pounds. Jones wants to play faster this upcoming season. After he had only 4.5 sacks in 2022, he wants to be able to get after the quarterback more, and maybe the Raiders have a plan here, and maybe so does Chandler Jones. This is what Chandler Jones had to say this offseason on losing weight. I went through a whole rehab process, and I was rehabbing. I kind of took my time instead of just jumping in and trying to gain muscle right away. Got back healthy, then I started working out, lifting, and that's where I am. I'm just kind of building muscle right now, just shedding the leaves off the tree and growing them back on. Jones also talked about playing at 250 pounds, and these quotes are from last week's presser, but, I thought it was kind of interesting here to discuss. I could play there. I don't know. We'll see when training camp starts, but I feel good. I feel fast, and we'll see what happens. Here's the thing with Chandler. Coming off the season that he had, very underwhelming, his worst season that he's ever had as a professional, unless you look at some other years where maybe injury has been involved. But when he's actually played, this is coming off his worst season. On top of that, he had a season-ending elbow injury, and Raider Nation wants and needs more. Chandler also knows that this is the year that he needs to play well, because if he doesn't, the Raiders can move on from Chandler Jones and they can save some money. The easiest way is to just tell somebody where you're at, contract restructure, and then you go out and you draft somebody at your same position at number 7 overall, like this Raiders team did with Tyree Wilson. So the latest on Chandler is that he's down to around 250 pounds. And as you can see with our player bio here, he was 260, 265 last season. So when you have a player at defensive end drop 10 to 15 pounds, that's a story. And we'll talk to y'all about some of the more ins and outs and potentially even more of a position change that Chandler could have here this upcoming season in Patrick Graham's defense. But coming up, Chandler Jones contract details, and anytime money is on the line, this is going to be a different Chandler Jones this upcoming season. It's kind of like a prove-it year. If he wants to make some millions in 2024, he needs to show up this upcoming season for this Raiders defense. I'll break down the contract and I'll talk to you about, hey, he might be playing a new position. But remember, if you're looking for wall-to-wall, or maybe we should say window to the wall till my sweat drops down my fill in the blank, Raiders coverage all year long. Take a second right now, hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications, and we're giving shout-outs the entire month of June. Every Raiders video that I put out this month, I'm giving shout-outs to new subs. So Joe I, Port, Roberto, Osso, Valerie, thank you very much for taking the time and subscribing to the show. Every sub helps this channel continue to grow. We were at one point, believe it or not, at only one sub. Let's continue to look here at Chandler Jones' contract, and the Raiders restructured his deal on April 29th. The Raiders added 3 void years to his contract, and now Jones has $0 million of guaranteed money in 2024. So he's going to probably look at himself in the mirror and be like, shit, I got $0 million in guarantees in 2024. The Raiders just drafted Tyree Wilson at number 7. If I don't have a good season, I'm in trouble. So when you look at void years, and you can go to over the cap to see how it's broken down a little bit more, but I can almost promise you, if Jones doesn't put up a good season, the Raiders are going to move on from him. They are going to make him a post-June 1st cut next season, because you can save $17 million. You're only going to eat $3.7 million. That is an easy conversation, instead of going with a player that is a little bit, you don't know what you're going to get, and paying him $20 million. The Raiders will not do that I can promise you. So what it really might come down to is this: sacks. How many sacks is Chandler Jones going to have this upcoming season? Because if you're going to pay a player $20 million for 4.5 sacks, it's a bad investment of money. I can promise you that. So when I think about Chandler Jones, I think about sacks. Pause. I think that he's going to end up having somewhere around 8 sacks this upcoming season. But I also think it's because he's going to be playing a little bit more outside linebacker. I was very tough on Chandler last season. Hell, I used to call him, "Where's Waldo?" because we expected a lot more. I'll also admit, though, Chandler was put in situations where he was made to set the edge, where he was made to not only get after the quarterback. If I'm Patrick Graham, if I'm Josh McDaniels, I look at this guy's ability to get after the quarterback, and I think you're going to see him a little bit more at outside linebacker. I think it's one of the reasons why he's dropped a little bit of weight, so he can play more stand-up, not put his hand down in the dirt so much. I also think it's one of the reasons why the Raiders have kind of ignored the linebacker position here a little bit. Coming up next here on today's show, my Tyree Wilson expectations. I've had my DMs flooded with, do you think that he's going to start? Is he going to make an impact? How healthy is he? Was it dumb to take a player with a Liz Frank injury? I mean, there's a lot of different questions around him, and it's more just because, let's face it, the Raiders have struggled in the round one, and we've also struggled on defense, so you take both of those concerns, you smash them together, and that's why I get a lot of questions on Tyree Wilson. I'll tell you my expectations on the young rookie, but if you want to get your hands on a Josh McDaniels Eats Corn the Long Way shirt, the link is right down below, chatsports.com/corn. Link's going to also be available for you guys down in the comments and in the description of today's show. I do it. I know some of y'all like the shirt. Some of y'all are like, man, you're too hard on McDaniels. I'm only here to have a good time, and if you can't laugh a little bit, especially if you can't laugh at yourself, then hey, what can you laugh at? Let's talk about Tyree Wilson. So, the expectations as it stands right now for the Raiders' 7th overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft is that he's not going to start practicing until around July. There's been a lot of conversation with Jimmy Garoppolo in terms of they're not going to rush him back. Same exact thing here. You're not going to rush back Tyree Wilson, who is dealing with a foot injury, who had surgery at this point, 5-6 months ago? So if he's healthy, he's going to be a day one starter. You do not draft players in the top 10 to have them sit on your bench, especially when you have the amount of holes that this team has on the defensive side of the football. So I can look at all of y'all right now very confidently and say, if Tyree Wilson is healthy, he's starting. If he's not starting, it means he's not 100% healthy. So Wilson, to me, is going to be the guy that plays defensive end. He's going to be the dude with his hand in the dirt more. And I really, truly believe you're going to see Tyree Wilson, Max Crosby, hand in the dirt. But then I also think that you're going to see the Raiders throw out Chandler Jones, maybe behind Tyree Wilson, maybe behind Max Crosby. That makes the offensive line, that makes your offensive coordinator decide, well, which guy am I not going to double team? Because if Jones is getting a lot more one-on-ones, he's going to win that matchup a little bit more. So you got Chandler and Tyree. I'm telling you, they're going to be on the field plenty this upcoming season. And I think it's, again, why the Raiders have, I'm going to use air quotes here, ignored the linebacker room, because they expect Chandler to play some outside linebacker. I'm not going to sit up here and say I anticipate them to drop Chandler Jones back into coverage. That would be a dumb thing to do. But if they're going to roll out there with a 4-2-5 type of defense with 2 linebackers, you could have a Robert Spillane as your only middle linebacker, and then if you really set up Chandler Jones on the far outside or right behind one of your premier edge rushers, this is what you're going to see this team do. It's going to be a little bit different. There's going to be some versatility, and it's going to be a bit of a mix. So we talked about Chandler Jones. We talked about Tyree Wilson. Who's going to make the bigger impact this upcoming season? If you think it's the vet, type CJ. If you believe it's going to be Tyree Wilson, the rookie, I want you to type TW down in the comments. For me personally, if Tyree Wilson is healthy, week 1, you tell me, 100% healthy, Tyree Wilson's going to be my answer. But because I don't know how healthy he is right now, and Liz Frank injuries with feet, I'm telling you, they scare me more than feet scare David Zahn. But for the advantage right now, it's got to go to Chandler Jones. And it's a slight advantage, but I don't think it's a bad thing that Chandler has the advantage. We have a good defense, or A lot better defensive line than what people are going to give us credit for. That I know. Next thing coming up here on the Raiders Report. I know a lot of people ask the question, why the hell did the Raiders sign Brian Hoyer? And when they did, I almost knew it. I did a show that the Raiders were going to sign Hoyer, and they're very predictable at times. But what you're seeing this offseason is literally why they decided to bring him in. I'll tell you the exact reason, but remember, this Saturday, me, Jermaine Illuminor, wing eating contest in Las Vegas at Barcode Burgers, 10 minutes off the strip, June 10th from noon to 3 p.m. And then afterwards, Chugs and I are going to be watching the Las Vegas Golden Knights. So if you want to hang out with Chugs and I, a bunch of Raiders players, photos, autographs, and it all goes to a good cause. Check it out. There's the flyer. If you have any more questions, I have stuff on Twitter. I have stuff on IG as well. I hope to see you there. So why did the Raiders go out and they sign Brian Hoyer? Well, top of the thing they wanted was a quarterback that, one, Ziegler McDaniels knew, and they wanted a quarterback that knew the McDaniels system. Also, if Jimmy Garoppolo isn't healthy, practice still needs to be able to run, and Hoyer helps out that process. I don't think that Ziegler and McDaniels knew when they signed Hoyer, I believe it was like April 9th or April 10th or something like that Garoppolo wasn't going to be on the field. But you signed Hoyer in case if Garoppolo were to go down in the regular season, you would still be able to run practice the exact same way because Hoyer, sure, he's not nearly as talented as Garoppolo, but it's about execution. Think about how many times you heard McDaniels say the word execution last season. Hoyer helps you execute in practice. Also, Hoyer can help mentor Aiden O'Connell. If they believe that they have a certain quarterback that works in their system, the player that they comped Aiden O'Connell to was Tom Brady. Now, you hear that out loud, like, holy shit, to comp the greatest quarterback of all time to Aiden O'Connell, what the hell are they smoking? I think it's also Tom Brady was not the GOAT when he was first coming out of college. They see certain traits in Aiden that they believe, hey, Brian Hoyer can be that. I can help you out here. We're going to groom this quarterback, and maybe he can be the next guy, just like they're trying to do here with Garoppolo, trying to be the next guy. So you have McDaniel's system. I laughed a little bit when he was like, man, we don't have anxiety. It's because Hoyer can still execute the offense in practice. Are they worried about the injury with Garoppolo? No, it sounds like he's going to be ready. But if you were a head coach and you were coming off a season where you just went 6-11 and your offense struggled and you had a brand new quarterback under center, you'd be worried if that entire team wasn't able to get up to speed. But you have Brian Hoyer, so technically from an execution standpoint, technically from all your wide receivers, your new tight ends, your offensive line learning the offense, they don't have anxiety because Hoyer still has the ability to execute that offense and make sure everybody's on the same page. So when Jimmy comes back in late July, early August, week 1, everybody is up to speed, and hopefully so is Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, this is what McDaniels had to say on Brian Hoyer. So I've obviously known Brian for a while, and Brian is a true pro. Really does a great job understanding his assignment, also understanding how he may help others. So he's been in a role as a backup quarterback for a number of years, so he understands what the responsibility is at that position and takes full advantage of every opportunity that he has when he has repetitions. And he's getting a lot of them now and able to function in our system. Look, their responsibility is to give the other 10 guys an opportunity to do their job well, and Brian does that very well. So, excited about what he's doing, continues to try to get even better, though he's been in the league for a number of years, works very hard at it, take care of his body, is a great example for our guys, so very pleased with that. So a lot of the things that I just mentioned there, and I'm glad McDaniel said the other 10 players. That is very important, and I really truly believe if the Raiders get off to a good start, or even if the offense is clicking right away, I hope the nation goes back and they think about the dog days of May, June, July, where Garoppolo was not able to go out there on the field and make sure that the entire offense, the 10 other players, was getting in the work that they needed to make sure that they were ready for week 1. But you know who was able to step up? Brian Hoyer. So if the Raiders offense is executing at a high level early on, I do hope that the nation gives Brian Hoyer his flowers, even if it is in September.